My name is Michael Sakala. In this video, we will learn how to calculate the optimal product mix which an organization can make under the topic limiting factor in the subject management accounting. To give an overview of limiting factor analysis, limiting factor analysis occurs when the organization is confronted with a situation where it has a resource which is used by multiple products and that resource is limited. All right. So now an organization needs to choose which products to produce which will maximize the profits for the business. All right. We are now going to move into a quick example. All right. A business makes 3 products, of which the details are given below. Product B14, B17, and B22. The selling price for each product in dollars is, for B14, it's $25 per unit. The selling price for B17 is $20 per unit. The selling price for B22 is $23 per unit. The variable cost for these products, for B14 it's $10 per unit, B17 it's $8 per unit, B22 it's $12 per unit. Weekly demand per product, weekly demand for B14 is 25 units, for B17 it's 22 units, for B17 it's 20 units, for B22 it's 30 units. All right. Now, in the question, there is an indication here to say each product requires a certain amount of machine hours per unit to be produced. So for product B14, the machine hours required per unit is 4 hours. For B17, it's 3 hours. And for B22, it's 4 hours. The question reads, if the machine hours are limited to 148 hours, calculate the product mix that will maximize the profit for the organization. All right, so the first step when we want to calculate the optimal product mix is to calculate the contribution per unit. And contribution per unit is calculated by simply saying selling price minus variable cost. That's how we calculate contribution per unit. So the first step, calculate contribution per unit. So B14, the selling price is $25, less variable cost, $10. We have $15 as our contribution for B14 per unit. B17, the selling price is $20 and the variable cost is $8. So we have $12, 20 minus 8, we have $12 as the contribution per unit for B17. B22, the selling price is $23 and then we have $12 as variable cost. So $23 minus $12, it's going to give us $11 as our contribution. The next step is to calculate the contribution per limiting factor, which is the machine hours. So we're just going to divide the contribution that we've calculated. We're going to divide them with the machine hours for producing 1 unit respectively. So the contribution per limiting factor, so for B14, we'll divide the contribution, which is $15, divided by machine hours, which is 4 hours, to just make 1 unit. So 15 divided by 4, we obtain $3.75 per hour. For B17, the contribution we had found was 12, so we're dividing this 12 divided by the machine hours required to produce 1 unit of B17, which is 3 hours per unit, and then this is going to give us $4 per hour. The last one, which is B22, the contribution that we have calculated is $11. So we're going to divide this $11 by 4 to get the contribution per limiting factor, and this will give us 2.75. 2.75. This was the second step. Step 3, we need to rank the products based on contribution per limiting factor, and we're going to rank in the order that the highest becomes the first ranking. So now looking at the contribution per limiting factor, for B14 it was $3.75 per hour. For B17 it was $4 per hour, and for B22 it was $2.75 per hour. When we look at these, the highest is B17 with $4 per hour, so I'll rank it first. And B14 ranks second with $3.75 per hour, with B22 ranking third with $2.75 per hour. All right, now using this order, I can now calculate the optimal mix given the 148 hours of 148 hours machine hours which are limited in supply. Okay. So what do? I need to look at the demand for each product. The demand for B14 is 25 units. The demand for B17 is 20 units. The demand for B22 is 30 units. Looking at this, B14 alone requires 4 hours to make 1 unit. So demand being 25 multiplied by 4, this will be 100 hours just for B14. B17 requires 3 hours per unit. 3 multiplied by 20, that will be 60 hours. B22 requires 4 hours per unit. 30 multiplied by 4 hours, that's 120 hours. These being calculated, they're going to give me 280 hours in total that will be required. But however, the company only has 148 hours that it has available in terms of labor, machine hours, resource. So we'll begin by producing B17, since it was the highest ranked in terms of contribution per limiting factor. So B17, the demand is 20 units, and the machine hours per unit is 3 hours. Therefore, to make 20 units, if it's 3 hours per unit, we need 60 hours of machine for B17 alone. Are we able to make the order of B17 having been given limited machine hours of 148 hours? Oh yes, we can make, because B17 only requires 60 hours and we have 148 hours available. All right, then we move to the next one, which is B14. B14 requires 25, the demand is 25 units, and it requires 4 hours per unit. So 4 hours multiplied by 25, that's 100 hours. Are we able to make the lot of B14? Maybe no. Let's assess. We only have 148 hours available, and so far we've used 60 hours. We are only remaining with 88 hours. So we won't be able to make the whole lot of B14, because the whole lot of B14, the demand is 25 and it requires 100 hours because it's 4 hours per unit. So now we need to divide through the number of hours that we have, which is 88 hours, divided by 4 hours to determine the number of units of B14 that are going to be produced. So 88 divided by 44, we have 22. So for B14, we are only going to make 22 units, though the clients, they need 25. We will not be able, given the number of machine hours available. So now the 22 units will consume 88 hours of machine time. So 60 hours which has been consumed by B17